Welcome to the Story Fulfilled podcast, where we deep dive into how each character and story in the Bible come together to fulfill the story of God. I'm Abby.
I'm Jay.
And I'm Fletcher.
And today's story is about Elijah and Ahab.
Elijah and Ahab.
I actually love
and
this
the whale.
story.
Yeah. Well, no, there's no whale. I was just going to say it sounded like a band name, maybe, but it doesn't
Oh,
really.
you're trying to play
Yeah,
Shane and
it's-
Emily's
yeah.
game. No, that's not a good band name.
not a good band
Sorry.
name.
Ahab and the whale? Or Elijah and Ahab? Yeah, it's not great.
Ahab and the Whale would be a good band
It would
name. Elijah and Ahab, not.
You might get copyright issues.
From
well,
the Bible.
There is no.
No.
Ahab and
The whale.
have no-
That's a book.
Oh,
Moby Dick.
Right, Moby Dick. Ahab.
That's what I was.
Right.
That's why you said Ahab and the whale.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Speaking
of
again,
whales.
that's just another layer of why it's a good band name. So the question is, what's a good band name? No, that's not the question for today. The question for today is, what is the greatest competition that you have ever been a part of?
Fletcher's so ready to answer this
I'm
one.
so excited. I've probably told it before. I don't care. It's great.
I don't think it's been told on the podcast.
I'm like, I
'Cause
don't know
where
how
you're
old I
going.
am. 13 years old. I'm playing
No, you were not that old.
10 years old.
Maybe. It was before 2010. You were just little, man.
Wow.
You were little.
I was
Fletcher
young.
was never little.
That's
get
right.
that one.
Junior
That one.
hockey, I was playing, and it was the Christmas tournament. We were in the finals, and I have been the substitute goalie for this whole tournament. I'm not a goalie. I was the substitute goalie. Make
So
that
wait,
very
did
clear.
you play at all then? You sat on the bench the whole tournament?
No. He would play.
I was
other
goalie the whole
positions.
tournament.
Okay.
Regular season, I
You
wasn't the
said
goalie.
substitute.
Yeah, I was on the team
Oh,
for the
okay,
regular
okay.
season. Our goalie couldn't come to the tournament,
Okay.
so I played goalie.
Gotcha.
I like playing goalie. Anyway, we make it to the finals. We're doing great. And it comes down, third period, it's tied, and it ends. And so, of course, it goes to a shootout after overtime. And I'm like, I'm the substitute goalie. I don't know what to do. And Abby can attest. I'm sitting there. I'm going to my dad, who's the coach, and I'm like, what do I do? He's like, you got it. You can do it. And so I go back. And, and in junior hockey, there's nobody that's like really good. So they put the people who can raise the puck
Just to
for
be
the
clear,
shootout.
junior hockey is not like, we're not talking junior.
Junior,
A
I'm talking
for
like
the
10 years
listeners.
old.
Yeah.
Junior pond hockey
Yeah,
for little
yeah,
kids.
yeah.
Anyway, people who can raise the puck, that's the best player.
Right.
And so I can catch things pretty well. And so all the people that shot and raised the puck, I would get. But if they iced it,
Would you use your mouth?
no, I'd use my
Because you
glove.
catch things with your
I
mouth.
do catch things with my
No, he
mouth.
does.
Not the hockey puck. But if it was on the ground, I was useless with the stick, and I was
Okay.
useless on the ground. 3 for 3, 3 to the gloves, or 2 to the gloves, 1 to the blocker. Win the tournament. Greatest competition.
You were the hero.
I was the hero. I have a
But what
picture.
was-
I
Amazing.
signed it.
What was even better was, so his mom and my mom and I were up in, like, there was a heated area that was like a glass area
Yeah.
where you could go sit up there. And my mom and I are watching, and Aunt Tanya, like Fletcher's mom, is like, oh, I can't watch this. And my mom's like, you are going to watch this. And she turned her head and forced her to watch Fletcher, because she's like, he's going to be looking up there at you. And if you're not watching, then he's going to start crying. He was already crying, but it's okay.
I was nervous, man. It's scary.
Big deal.
Yeah.
Can't let the whole team down. The
No.
like shootout is all goalie.
Shootout
It's true. It
is.
sucks.
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah.
pressure there.
Either you're the hero or the zero.
That's right. And I made it. Luckily. Ooh,
That's it.
felt
All
good
right.
though.
Do you have one, Abby?
Oh yeah, I have one. I don't know if this is the greatest challenge I've ever been a part of. I feel like I've been in a lot of challenges, but this is one that came to mind. I was working at camp, and we were having a sock wrestling tournament.
All right.
Oh,
And for
very
those of
steep
you-
competition.
Who don't know what sock wrestling is?
You get the
everybody-
smelliest sock and you try and knock the other person out.
No, everybody's wearing a pair of socks, and you have to try to take off people's socks. Once
Right.
their socks are off, you're eliminated. And so we played it in the beach volleyball court, which was a blast.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there were really no rules. Like, don't punch somebody, but otherwise just get the socks off. And
That's it.
there were like 30 of us in this thing, and I won. So
There you
that was
go.
pretty exciting.
Now, you guys, if I understand correctly, you guys have done this as a family, have you not? Like with the
Oh,
cousins.
that was
and,
that was at Family
is
Olympics.
So
Yeah.
fun. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And like our
It was-
aunts and uncles were involved. It was
Oh, yeah.
hilarious.
And
Grandma get in there? Because I know she plays slow pitch.
She'd probably hurt herself.
She hurt herself. But Aunt Tanya and wrestled our cousin Elizabeth, and that I think was our favorite
hilarious. It was just giggling the whole time as they reached for each other's socks.
That's wild.
Very
That's
funny.
Wild.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So I have the greatest competition that I've ever been a part of. I was playing soccer when I was younger, and something happened to our coach. I don't know, like he got sick or maybe he had a heart attack. Like something happened where he had to stop coaching, and so my father and another father from the team, they stepped in, and they didn't know anything about soccer. But somehow our team went on, and I think my dad coached soccer like hockey because he understood hockey, didn't understand soccer. But he coached us. And,
So he was telling you to like check them.
yeah, well, there was no body check, but he was like, yeah, just the positions that we played and whatnot. Anyways, we played and we went on and went through the playoffs. Won through the playoffs, went to the championship game, and the championship game was in it was in a stadium.
Boy.
We would just play in like a soccer, there was a field with like 4 or 5 soccer pitches,
the
right?
community soccer.
Yeah, but then the championship was at it's called Esther Schreiner Stadium in North York in Toronto, and it's where Toronto had before TFC was a thing. Toronto had a professional, I'm air quoting here, professional soccer team that they played against like other boroughs and whatnot, and that's where they played. And so we were playing this championship game, and as we're playing, the rain starts coming down.
Nice.
And we battle to a draw. It was 0-0, 1-1, I don't remember. Play overtime, draw, and then the shootout. And we lost.
Oh.
But it was the most epic match ever because it was raining, we're sliding all over the place, and it's, it was amazing.
can imagine.
It was amazing.
That's
And
fantastic.
we were kind of like, we felt as though we were the underdogs because we had coaches who didn't know what they were doing, but there we were.
I'm getting goosebumps just listening.
Yeah, it was epic.
Jay's going to direct a movie now.
About his
Little Kickers. That's what it's called.
Little Kickers. I think that one's trademarked. I don't know.
Probably.
All right, let us
Tidbits.
know. What is the greatest competition that you've been a part of? If you are a part of the Fletcher family clan, maybe you can let us in on Family Olympics and tell us some secrets about the 2 participants who are a part of this podcast. Send us an email, drop a line on Instagram. Of course, as always, we do encourage you to read the stories that we are reading and looking at for yourselves in order to get the whole picture of what is going on. And today's story takes place in the book of 1 Kings. Last week, we talked about Nathan, and he was a prophet, and he called out David. And this week, we're actually jumping forward a few books and about 100 years in history to King Ahab. So after David was king, his son Solomon reigns and builds the temple. And just to back up, I guess, some of what Nathan said we saw with his other son, because he had another son that tried to take the kingdom forcibly from him. Didn't work out so well. And so the sword did not depart from his hand, as was said. But Solomon becomes the king, and he reigns, and he builds a temple. And under his kingship, Israel becomes very wealthy. But after his death was his son Rehoboam, and there was this fight kind of between Rehoboam and Jeroboam, and Rehoboam, he really didn't do well. He was asked to kind of lighten the load, and he's like, oh, you think my father was harsh? I'm going to discipline with whips and scorpions. And like, how do you even discipline with scorpions, right?
I don't want to be disciplined with
I don't want to be
scorpions.
disciplined with a scorpion.
I get why they split.
Yeah. And so there's a split in the kingdoms. There's a northern kingdom and a southern kingdom. And the northern kingdom goes by the name of Israel, and the southern kingdom by the name of Judah. And Israel, the northern kingdom, is the subject that we're going to look at today. And immediately they turn away from God, and they turn to Canaanite gods and idols. And a lot of that had to do with not traveling to the south in order to worship at the temple. And so time goes on, and Ahab is now the king of Israel, and he's married to a Phoenician princess named Jezebel.
We know about her.
We talked about her
Sure do.
last season. Was it last season?
Yeah. I think.
Maybe a couple seasons.
yeah,
I don't know.
Go look.
Yeah, and because of her influence, they turn, and then the whole kingdom begins to worship the Canaanite god Baal. And Ahab even sets up a temple to Baal in Samaria, which is the capital. And the scriptures say Ahab did more to provoke the anger of the Lord than any of the other kings of Israel before him, which is saying a lot.
I was gonna say I know some of the kings in that
what had
list.
gone on. Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah. So along comes Elijah, who is a prophet of God, and he's our main character today. And he is sent to talk to Ahab and tell him that there will be no rain in Israel until he says so. And so there's a drought in Israel for the next 2 years. And during the drought, Elijah is sent by God around the country, and he performs a number of miracles and actually even raises somebody from the dead. So it's God. He doesn't raise anyone from the dead. God uses him to raise someone from the dead. Really neat stories in there and neat displays of God's power in there.
And so today's story takes place during the divided kingdom, like Jay has said. And so there's kings in Judah and there's kings in Israel. And Ahab is the current king of Israel. And he became king in 874 BC. And along in Judah, there's a king named Asa. And so they're kings at the same time. So like we said, Samaria is the capital of Israel, and Jezebel, the queen, has built a palace in a place called Jezreel, and so she lives in Jezreel instead of in the capital.
Yes, so today's story takes place at Mount Carmel, which is located in northern Israel along the Mediterranean. Carmel is just south of Phoenicia and west of Nazareth. So being so close to Phoenicia made this location a direct challenge to Jezebel. And we know, if you go back and listen to that episode, we know she does not like to be challenged. It was also the center of worship for the Canaanite fertility god Baal. And this is who Jezebel and the Israelites worshipped at some time.
Absolutely. So let's get into it. The story of Elijah and Ahab. So we start our story today on the third year of the drought in Israel. Things aren't going well, and Ahab is out traveling with his right-hand man, Obadiah. And so he's searching for grass that their animals can eat, because all the grass is dead, and they're like, well, we can't let them starve. We don't want to kill them. And so they split up and they keep looking, and eventually Obadiah sees Elijah in the distance coming. And Obadiah gets excited. Oh, is that you? Is that you, Elijah? He goes, yeah, it's me. And so Elijah says, go get Ahab. I need to talk to him.
Right.
And Obadiah, not so keen on this, because Elijah's famous for traveling all around the country and disappearing, reappearing other places. And so Obadiah goes, I can't do that. If I go get Ahab, you're just going to disappear on me, and Ahab's going to be
toast.
mad.
Yeah.
And so Elijah promises, nope, this is what God wants. I'm going to appear before Ahab. And so they go get Ahab, and Ahab shows up, and Elijah and Ahab goes, is it really you, O troublemaker of Israel? And so Elijah's response is, it's your family that's the troublemaker in Israel. You've ignored the word of God and worshiped Baal instead. Yep. So already things are on hot terms. They're not so friendly towards each other.
Yeah.
And so because of this, Elijah then issues a challenge to Ahab, and he says, summon all Israel to Mount Carmel, including the prophets of Baal and the priests of Baal, and then Asherah as well, which is another Canaanite goddess. Right. And so they all arrive, and Elijah declares to everyone, how long will you continue to jump from branch to branch serving other gods? If Yahweh is God, then serve him, but if Baal is God, then serve him. Mm-hmm. And so he's on Mount Carmel. The whole of Israel is gathered around. There's priests from Baal and Asherah, and there's the one prophet left of God, and that's Elijah. Uh-huh. And so he sets up the challenge, and he says, okay, set up an altar to your God. And so they take stones, and so they set up an altar for Baal and set up an altar for Asherah. And so basically the challenge is this: whoever's God strikes down fire from the sky is the true God. Mm. And so the priests of Baal take a bull, kill it, and sacrifice it to them, and then put it on the altar, and they start dancing. Yeah. Start dancing around and start praising, Baal, come rescue me. And so during this, nothing's happening, and Elijah starts going, well, maybe he's sleeping. You should sing louder. Maybe he's going to the bathroom. Maybe, you can't hear you. Speak louder. Right. And so they start going into this frenzied dance. And one of the things that they would do is ritual cutting. So they would cut themselves to bleed to try to get God's attention.
Right.
And so obviously this isn't a thing that the Jews did. This was, the Jews were doing it, but they were worshiping Baal instead of Yahweh. And so Elijah is issuing these taunts, where's your God? Where's your God? And they do this up until the evening and nothing happens. And then Elijah comes forward and he says, all right, it's my turn. And so he gets 12 stones and builds an altar to God. And so those 12 stones actually represent the tribes of Israel. Yeah. Then he sacrifices the bull and he puts it on the wood on the altar. And then he gets his servants to go get buckets of water. And so he gets 12 buckets of water.
Which is in short supply.
Yeah. Dumps it on the bull, dumps it on the wood, soaks everything. And so 12 buckets of water go on this thing, again, to represent the 12 tribes of Israel. Right. And so the altar is completely soaked. And then this is what Elijah says when he prays to God. He goes, O God, O Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, prove today that you are God in Israel and that I am your servant. Prove that I have done all this at your command. O Lord, answer me. Answer me so these people will know that you, O Lord, are God and that you have brought them back to yourself. So immediately after he says this, fire comes down, lightning comes down, and burns up everything. It burns the wood, it burns the bull, it burns the rocks, and it burns the water that was that was on the altar. So when the people see this, they fall on the faces and they cried out to God. They weren't doing this before, but now God's proved himself once again. And so then Elijah commands the people to go capture the priests of Baal, and they would kill them and put them to death. And Elijah then, gets something to eat. Sorry, he sends King Ahab to get something to eat.
Yeah, he's like, go have
a bite to eat. I think rain's going to come soon. Yeah. So Ahab goes down the mountain and gets something to eat. And in the meantime, Elijah goes on the top of the mountain and prays to God. And he says, to his servant, go look at the horizon, see if there's any clouds. And Elijah prays. The servant comes back, nothing yet. And then Elijah prays again, and then the servant comes back. Oh, there's clouds coming.
But it's a cloud that he says is it's the size of a man's hand.
Right. It's a small little cloud.
Not very big.
Not big cloud. Yeah. And so Elijah goes, okay, let's go get King Ahab. It's about to rain. So they rush down the mountain. They say, Ahab, you better get moving now. Go home. It's about to pour rain, so you beat the rain. And so Ahab
takes his
chariot and starts going. And then on their way home, they get caught in the rain. And it says Elijah lifts up his skirts, lifts up his shirt, and he runs and beats Ahab home.
Right. He outruns him.
He outruns him just on his feet. And there's this massive rainstorm, and finally rain has been restored to Israel.
Yeah.
Ooh. Elijah's challenge. I think he won. Just like me in my shootout, Elijah won the challenge.
There you go.
God won the challenge.
God won. Yeah. God won. Yeah.
It's a wild story.
It's crazy.
It's
quite the story.
So where does justice and mercy and those things fit in?
Right.
Judgment,
whatever we're talking about this season. Yeah, exactly.
All the topics.
There's so much going on in there, but I think in Elijah's prayer at the end, he says, O Lord, answer me and answer so these people will know that you are Lord, you, O Lord, our God, and that you have brought them back to yourself. And so the purpose, we read this and we see that the actual priests of Baal are slaughtered, which it's hard to read that. But the people, the purpose of this whole display and competition was so that the people could be turned back to God, that they could recognize that they've been misguided and that they've turned their attention from God. And so when Elijah is praying, he's saying that they would be turned back to God. And so I think just in that we see that is God's mercy towards the people in that they've done what is detestable in his eye. They've chased after foreign gods. They've abandoned the one true God,
who had done all this stuff
for them. And even the king turned to a wicked queen and aligned his allegiance with her, and God still, his desire is to bring them back and to bring them into right relationship with him.
Exactly. And like we've been saying this entire season, these warnings, these are the warnings that God is giving, right? The only judgment that came this time was on specifically the priests of that foreign god. And so these were Israelites that had turned so far to be priests and leaders of this Canaanite religion that they were expressly forbidden from practicing, right?
Yeah.
And so, again, this showdown between, I think we talked about this in the plagues episode.
Right.
This was a showdown against Yahweh, the God of Israel, and Baal.
Yeah.
And just to show whose God is God. If Baal is God, worship him.
Sure.
But if Yahweh's God, worship him. And
Yeah.
so that's another thing. It's like it's judgment not just against the people for turning away from him, but listen, I'm showing you again and again, I'm the one in control.
Yeah.
So worship me. Stop turning away. Stop turning away.
Choose for yourself.
Choose
today.
for yourself. And it worked.
Yeah.
For a little bit.
Yeah.
Again, if you read Kings, it's a cycle of God doing some incredible things and the people, oh yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And then they turn again.
Well, it's almost the same cycle that we see in Judges,
of course.
although they have the king that they've
You might
asked
even
for.
say the cycle of
Humanity. Yeah. Yeah.
And so another cool thing that's imagery in the story is that
Altar.
the altar that Elijah sets up is these 12 stones. And so, like I said in the story, these 12 stones are meant to represent the 12 tribes of Israel. And so he builds it up and builds a sacrifice to God, puts the bowl and puts the wood on the fire. And then he douses it with water. And he douses it with water. I think 3 times he douses it with water.
With 4 jugs.
With 4 jugs. So it's 12 in total. Again, 12 to represent the 12 tribes. But that's showing. So the altar is to show the covenant, right? Relationship that Israel and God have. And then pouring the water on, it's dousing it. It's putting it out. I'm going to turn away, putting it out, putting it out. So that's what the imagery of the water is. And even though the Israelites turned away from God over and over and over, they're pouring water on the relationship, on their flame.
Right.
God is still able to strike fire and bring it back and redeem their relationship, even though they've chosen to turn away from him so many times.
And his faithfulness is so much stronger than their resolve to do it wrong. Which, and not just them, us as believers even, but just all of humanity. God's faithfulness to humanity is so much stronger than our resolve to seek others and to turn away from him. He continually puts on display his greatness and his faithfulness. And I think it's even like we see this amazing display of his power here in this showdown with the Baal prophets, and we saw it, like you said, in Pharaoh, and we see it all the way through the history of the world. And then we read in Revelation that there are displays and signs of God's power as well that are put on display, and that they are so that the people would turn to God, and people still in their stubbornness and hardness of heart choose not to turn to God. But each display of his greatness is an opportunity for us to turn to God and to recognize that he is the one true God and that he is deserving of our worship.
And so, that's even like the point of all these stories that we're telling is it's giving you another chance to say, oh, this is an incredible God. And that's one of the reasons we do it, is because we want to put on display the wonderful and powerful things that God has done, just to show you, listener, if you're listening, that he's there for you and he wants a relationship with you. And all you have to do is turn to him. And so that's such a cool thing that we get to do. And Elijah got to do to the people of Israel. He got to witness the power of God firsthand and preach this. Just turn to God, turn back to him. That's what he wants.
That's right.
So if you're listening and you haven't, look into it.
Yeah.
Turn to God, and he wants to get to know you. And it's that's the nice thing is you don't have to earn it. And that's the great thing. What Jay was just saying is, it's God's power that's put on display constantly. It's not our own works. It's not our own efforts that are going to do it. It's God's power that is going to make it work for you.
Yeah. Just along those lines, if you're listening and that's on your heart and you're wondering about a relationship with Jesus, you don't know who to talk to, send us an email.
Absolutely.
story@bfmc.org. Send a DM to our Instagram, whatever. We'd love to chat with you through that and just kind of help you process that. Yeah.
Well, you guys did it again, and you stole the question already. So
Yes, we did. I'm sorry. You can ask it still. We have an answer. Here we go.
you have an answer? Okay.
Yeah.
How does this story fit into the rest of the story of God throughout the Bible?
Rewind.
Just
Just rewind. Yeah. We could go all into, Elijah's, John the Baptist. We'll talk about that in a few weeks.
Yeah.
There you
Stay
go.
tuned, and you'll hear another part of the answer of this episode, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all for today.
Thanks for listening.
Bye for now.